I want to talk about a particular trial that many OBs and other providers use as the reference for elective induction of labor. Elective induction because that means there's no clear medical indication. I, for one, I'm not sure why this is an issue. Pregnancy is 40 weeks. 70% of patients deliver around that 10 days window around the due date. Now, I'm thinking there must be a reason why gestational age or pregnancy is 40 weeks. It hasn't changed for thousands of years. Now, all of a sudden, we want to do something at 39 weeks. So, a particular study, or ARRIVE study, first published in the August of 2018, involves 6,100 patients, and the group was divided into two: induction of labor versus expectant management. Here are a few reasons why I think it is very difficult to apply the outcome of this study to general population. First of all, the population was made up with 24% African Americans versus perhaps little under 15%, which is the general population in the United States. And then only 4% was older than 35 versus current pregnant patients, about 18% are over 35. I think these two facts are really important. Now, as far as the outcome is concerned, the primary outcome they wanted to compare was there any harm done by intervention? Answer was no. Their neonatal outcomes were both same for induction versus expectant management. But additional outcomes, first of all, cesarean section. This is what people are using. Induction patients, 18%. Expectant management patients, 22%. Again, expectant management meaning we let patients go into labor. 18 versus 22%. Well, there's a statistical difference between these two numbers, but the issue is even 22% is significantly lower than the national average. So I'm not really sure how this number came about. The other thing is, the argument is with this trial, 8 versus 14% hypertension, meaning induced patient group, the percentage of hypertension was only 8, and expectant management group was 14%. The problem I have with these two numbers is typically when we look at both high and low risk patients in general, all pregnancies put together, the percentage of hypertension is really 5 to 6%. So why in this group is the percentage high for both induced and expectant management? So taking this then to say, hey, at 39 weeks, elective induction will lower your risk of cesarean section and less likely to develop hypertension, I think is erroneous, because the population in this group is really not reflective of general population. One of the comments from this study was, by inducing 28 low-risk patients at 39 weeks, we could avoid 1 cesarean section. Using same approach, if 14 women with low risk, first-time moms were supported with continuous labor support, we could avoid 1 C-section. 28 versus 14, I think I would go with 14. I, for one, do not believe there's a place for elective induction in 2022. Why? Pandemic. We are struggling with shortage of medical staff. What I see in the hospital that I work out of, often, one, we have shortage of medical staff, particularly labor and delivery nurses. And we are having too many elective inductions who are admitted, taking up spaces. And then until those patients are delivered, there is no room for medically indicated patients who need to be admitted for induction of labor. Beyond that, I really believe you don't go against Mother Nature. It's 40 weeks. All pregnancy ends. At some point, women will go into labor. It is not my job. I tell patients, you know what? Other than the decision you made to get pregnant, that action is what you did, but the rest is reactions. There is no action to be had, not by the patient, not by providers. And induction of labor, which means often cervical ripening is needed, which can take a day, 2, 3, or more. What does that mean? It means more vaginal exams. Vaginal exams are uncomfortable, and the whole process, I think, can be very uncomfortable to painful. During all these days in the hospital, guess what? Your anxiety goes up. What happens when your anxiety goes up? Stress hormone goes up, and then that raises your blood pressure. Nothing good happens. So my patients who come to my practice, they know Chun doesn't mess with Mother Nature. Unless there's a clear medical indication, 39 weeks elective induction is not something I talk about. I may mention, but I talk about, hey, let me just make sure that you are doing well. Come 40 weeks, you'll be seen every 2-3 days until perhaps 40 and a half, 41. Some patients are absolutely wanting to stay until 42 weeks. 42 weeks, I think, is very reasonable time for patients to be admitted and talk about different options of induction, but not at 39 weeks. Now, what I want to say is, why am I so adamant about all this? Well, you're talking to a rather seasoned obstetrician. You know, in professional sports, you don't find 60-year-old playing basketball, football, ice hockey, or soccer. But in medicine and surgery, guess what? Experience matters. After thousands of babies I've delivered, I know what my outcome is going to be like. My patients are happy. I think that's why so many of them drive for an hour or longer. An extreme example, to have a patient drive 4 or 5 hours one way to come and see me for prenatal care, that's an extreme example, but I've had those patients. Why? Because I believe in listening to patients. I believe in Mother Nature, and I don't muck around. Let things happen. I am not a big fan of induction of labor at 39 weeks.